Welcome to Rolling, a series where I take whatever character I feel like and throw them together in Cyberpunk Red, the tabletop game. This time around, we're looking at what may be my final character from Edge Runners, Rebecca, the raging runt herself. This short stack was the favorite behind both David and Lucy, and it wouldn't feel right not at least getting her built before moving on to other characters. As always, a warning going forward, I am not going to be holding back spoilers at all past this point. And if you want easy access to the build, I do have a copy of the Foundry version of it available in Discord. You'll find the link to that anytime I stream. And now that the boring stuff is over, let's get to it and talk the theory. Now, with Rebecca, I had to make the choice if I wanted to build her with or without her cyber arms. Basically, like with David, I had to pick pre-time skip or post-time skip. The way her cyber arms are used in the show are less about major modifications or even using them in a melee fight. What she uses them for, instead, is to balance out heavier weaponry like their gun mounts. Her first build had big knucks to represent those arms, but I ended up dropping them in favor of spinning those eddies in better places. So, this Rebecca is a pre-time skip Rebecca, but at the end of this video in the night market run, I do have them included as recommended buys. Rebecca is, well, a solo. A straight-up gun collector who uses her weapons to even communicate at times, like when she shot Pilar's hand whenever he was flipping her off. Comparing building her to Lucy, she was a breeze. I wanted to keep in mind as well what she's known for, her shotgun guts, and I also really wanted to lean into how many automatic weapons she uses. While she did show a bit of finesse in delaying Maxim, the driver for Mr. Tanaka, I wanted to make sure her dangerous side shone above all else. She's not subtle, she's loud, and hopefully her build shows that. She gets into a position and then turns herself into a turret that brings just total destruction down on anything and everything around her. Being a solo, she gets access to Combat Awareness, a role ability that lets you move bonuses around on the fly to adapt to combat situations. I recommend by default keeping points either in Initiative Reaction to boost your initiative in case of a surprise attack, or Spot Weakness to give her that little extra damage edge. Either way, this is all fully to taste, and it's one of the fun parts of playing a solo in Cyberpunk Red. Rebecca's stats are weighted heavily to make sure when she shoots, she hits. Going down from top to bottom though, as always, we're going to start off with her intelligence. She's packing a 5 here. She never showed off any major planning skills, she just wanted to keep shooting things. That though is why her next stat, Reflex, is at a 7. Reflex is the main stat that governs all ranged weapon skills, and the only reason this is not an 8 is because she never showed that she was the bullet dodging type. She kinda just stood there and hopefully didn't get shot. Because let's face it, if she was a little bit better at dodging, things would have worked out differently in the end. And no, I'm not sorry for that comment. This though represents her experience with being a markswoman, and leans into everything about her build working. After Reflex, we come upon Dexterity, and that'll be getting a 7 too. She has shown that she is nimble. Able to squeeze out a main's grip with ease, this'll help her dodge anyone who gets too close for comfort and tries to take it into melee. Her technique is going to be a 6, as I'm sure Pilar had an influence on her and taught her a thing or two, especially when it comes to fixing and working on her guns. Her cool is at a 6 as well. She knows how to handle herself during a distraction, while also knowing how to put on a show and show off a little after a gig. We come now though to her 2 highest stats in a row, and that first 8 is going to be going into willpower. Rebecca's not the type to back down, and if anybody tells her otherwise, she puts a gun in their face. It's very hard to keep her in check. Even when captured and uses a bargaining chip, she's already biting at the restraints. Willpower is also one of the 2 stats that govern HP, and is stated to be the will to live. After that, her next stat that gets an 8 is gonna be luck. Yes, I'm putting 8 points into her luck. The intent behind this is I hope people use it to its fullest extent to pull off the kind of shots that she's actually capable of. Plus, that luck will go well into helping others because, let's face it too, David was pretty lucky to have her. Now though we get into her lowest stats, and the first one, that's gonna be at a 4, is her movement. I mean, let's face it, she's got little legs, and in most cases rooted herself in a spot to begin firing away. Her body as well is going to be a 4. This is also represented because she's more of a ranged fighter and a gunner. She never really gets into the thick of it melee-wise, and whenever she's actually kicking or beating somebody, doesn't seem to really hurt them that much. And this does have an effect on her HP, but it is offset by her high willpower. And finally, for her empathy, it's going to be a 5. She shows herself at times to be the most human out of the whole bunch, but that's also offset by the simple fact that she loses her complete mind more than once. She can be borderline psycho, but she's got a heart, and she goes even further to protect those she cares about than herself. Now, to go over her skills. We will follow the format that I like using the most, which is using the 2-4-6 setup. The system Cyberpunk Red runs off of is skill-based rather than class-based, so from here on, this is where Rebecca's build will really start to take shape. The highest that a skill can go in character creation is 6 for the record. Also, I'll be using a couple skills this time designated as ×2, which means they cost 2 points to buy 1 level in. So if the math seems off in the first glance, just check where I add an X2 by the skill name and it should line up right for you. Starting off with the skills with 2 levels apiece in them, we're going to have Concentration, Dance, Education, Street Slang, Local Expert, Conversation, Persuasion, First Aid, and Weapons Tech. This, of course, covers all the basics, with a little bit of fun thrown in as she points out her love for dancing while also mocking David's lack of skill in it. Also, she'd have a little know-how how to work on her weapons to fix them, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about her technique. With the skills that have 4 levels apiece, we'll be going with Contortionist, Perception, Brawling, Human Perception, Stealth, Acting, and Heavy Weapons. She squeezes so easily out of Maine's grasp, it has to be pointed out. She's a keen eye due to her shooting skill. She's small, so she hides easier, but she can also tell when things really are wrong or off with someone else. And finally, for skills that have 6 levels, we go with Athletics, Evasion, Handgun, Shoulder Arms, and Autofire. This makes it so she's able to get out of the way when she needs to, but it also shows that she has no trouble lugging around things that are bigger or heavier than her. The gun skills are a given, but here we have Autofire, the most important skill in her build that I've made for her here. I'll explain why once we get to the weapons. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and get into the gear and start off with weapons. With Rebecca, her skills give her what she needs to use pretty much any gun. And the choices were hard. The only thing she can't use is bows and crossbows. In the end, despite me having to almost coin flip to determine an assault rifle or not, this is how it turned out. First, she's packing a heavy pistol, same one she always draws first. But next, we have a heavy SMG. But this thing also is packing a certain upgrade, an extended magazine. This bumps up the total bullets it can be loaded with to 50. Remember how I said Autofire is an important skill for her? This is why. There are no LMGs, so this one represents that and is cheaper overall than an assault rifle. Using this weapon with Autofire is the key to using her build right, because you wind up getting 5 uses before you have to reload. Because Autofire requires you to fire 10 rounds whenever you use it. After that, we have Guts, a shotgun with an extended magazine as well. I really wanted to snag this as an excellent quality one, but the budget wouldn't allow for it. And to be fair, it would only mean a +1 anyway. This totals out for weapons and upgrade costs to 900 eddies flat. Next, ammunition. We're going to be bringing 200 basic heavy pistol ammunition. And the reason for that is because both the heavy pistol and the heavy SMG use the same ammo type. These 2 weapons together are nicely swapped thanks to this little perk. And of course, 30 basic shotgun slugs and 20 basic shotgun shells. And this totals up to being only 250 eddies for ammunition. It's a nice even number, and the fact that 2 weapons share the same ammo type, it's lovely. After that, we'll cover some additional gear. She only is packing a light armor jack, just the body, and an agent, and that's just another 200 eddies. But now, we get into cyberware. And for that, since we're doing pre-time skip, we will be focusing purely on her eyes. At first, she actually had subdermal armor, but I decided against it to save a little bit of eddies. She's of course using 2 cyber eyes, and one is sporting a targeting scope, and the other, teleoptics. This tallies up to a heavy 1,200 eddies, but covers her eyes in a solid way to get her going as a solo. And last but not least, her fashion wear is pretty easy to set up. For fashion cyberwear, it'll be Kim skin for that pale complexion, tech hair to go along with it, light tattoo for her iconic pink ink, EMP threading for the designs around her eyes, and then her clothing with leisure wear pieces and some urban flash. Not really too much needed for her in terms of fashion. She's really just running around in a big coat. But that's it. You've got Rebecca now in full pre-time skip with all of her pint-sized fury. Now though, let's talk about future purchase recommendations for her in the night market run. And after that, I'll cover playstyle a little bit too. So first off, for the night market run, let's get to something that Rebecca is known for, but I didn't put in for this version. Keep your eyes open for a set of cyber arms. They'll be 500 eddies apiece, but if you want that post-time skip look, this is the way to go. You can put big knucks on these too, but as I said earlier in the video, she seems to use them purely as a replacement for gun mounts. She turns herself into a turret. Going the route of the 2077 vibe, pick up a cyber audio suite and an internal agent. That, combined with chyrons, 2 by the way, 1 for each eye, will give you that hollow call and HUD you always dreamed about. Can't go wrong with a biomonitor either. It'll sync up with your chyrons and agents all the same. A good buy as well for the cyber eyes if you're still looking around, maybe anti-dazzles too. She's a gunner, so she's got to protect what helps her hit, and if she's blind, she's not hitting anything. As for possible weapons, well, I won't hide it. Everything. Go absolutely nuts. Rebecca seems like she's a collector, and she has different guns just in a tote bag carried around with her. If it shoots things, buy it. Same with grenades and upgrades. And if you want a true goal to shoot for, go for an exotic weapon. A good pick is the Constitution Arms Hurricane Assault Weapon. That thing is a shotgun with a rate of fire of 2 per round. It holds 16 shots as well before needing to reload, but it requires 11 body or higher unless mounted. It's a beast, but it has limitations. Now, let's talk playstyle. Rebecca is definitely a find cover, hunker down, mow down targets kind of solo. Making the autofire use be the focus was hard because I wanted to fit in the shotgun for guts, and I was also trying to make it work with an AR. But when I saw the heavy SMG and the fact it uses the same ammo as heavy pistols, it was a match, a big saving money match. You'll rely on the heavy SMG to chew apart almost anything you can, since you get 5 autofires with it before you have to reload. The heavy pistol is more for flair, but the shotgun is going to be your bread and butter when you know they're coming in close. Rebecca has super low movement, but don't be afraid to rely on luck to make some of those harder to hit shots. Also, don't be afraid to pick up some grenades for her to use, because initially, she actually had AP grenades with her. But in the end, Rebecca is a much simpler playstyle compared to David, who is a grab, disarm, initiative manipulator, or Lucy, who is a melee netrunner. You just get to sit back, fire away, and laugh all the while you do it. Just keep an eye on your ammo supply, it's gonna go really quick. And that is Rebecca, complete for Cyberpunk Red's 2045 setting rather than 2077. Building her was a relief because I had so many options to choose from and a wide open budget. As always, this is a theme build, not an optimized one. It has been battle tested, so it will survive your gigs so you can get some extra eddies to take her to the next step, whatever you feel that may be. Rebecca can really be a demon in combat. She actually pulled off another tarot crit just like David did when we were testing him. And don't be afraid to try a few tweaks to her yourself. I will always go for theme over everything else first, but make it your own. And I hope she works out well for you. But that's all for the build for now. And to answer if you're curious where the backdrop video and mini came from, I'm using both Tailspire and Hero Forge to pull that off. I hope that helps quell any questions, and as for the next episode, I'm already looking at 2 possible choices, both in their own rights a pair of raspy, gruff heroes from 2 different universes. Take care everyone, and I hope you find yourselves a good table.